Claire Whitmore stood at the edge of the field, staring at the sagging roof of the barn, her inheritance. Her brothers got the house, the Jeep, the boat, and the savings. She got this. While they laughed and toasted whiskey on the porch, she was left with rotting beams and silence. The will had been painfully clear. Sam got the Jeep, Bryan got the boat, Claire got the barn. No one protested, not because it was fair, but because it suited their version of justice. Claire had always been the golden child, the one who moved back home when their father got sick. She stayed for 14 months, not for the money, because she couldn't let him die alone. Now the ache in her chest returned as the funeral guests trickled away, leaving only family behind. Bryan raised his glass. "You got the barn, that's something," Sam chuckled. "Maybe you'll find something shiny in there." Claire forced a smile and walked away. The barn stood alone, leaning like it was tired of holding secrets. She hadn't stepped inside in over a decade, not since her father locked it when she turned 16. They said it was off limits. Now it was hers. Inside, the barn was worse than she remembered. Dust coated every surface. Cobwebs hung thick from beams. She swept for hours, moving slowly through old memories and animal stalls labeled with names Bessie, Duke, Honey. It felt like penance. Later that night, she stood in the kitchen as her brothers laughed over steak and drinks. No one had offered her dinner. "I stayed," she said quietly. "I gave up everything. I earned more than dust." Bryan shrugged. "You didn't stay for money." Sam laughed. "Maybe you'll find something shiny." The next morning she returned, determined. She cleaned deeper, working through every corner. In the far back, behind the old feed bins, she found it an untouched mound of hay. As she pulled it apart, her knuckles hit something solid. A trap door. She stared at the metal ring. How had she never seen this? It had been part of the floor her entire childhood. She hesitated, then let go. Not today. That night, she didn't sleep. By sunrise, she was back, flashlight and pry bar in hand. The trap door groaned open, revealing a narrow staircase into darkness. With her breath held, she descended. The steps creaked beneath her, but held. At the bottom, her boots met packed earth. The cellar was larger than expected, lined with wooden shelves, old furniture, and boxes of papers. A recliner leaned against the wall. A filing cabinet stood open, and a fridge sat in the corner, duct-taped shut. Dust hung heavy in the air. It didn't look like a bunker. It looked like storage, ordinary, forgotten. Claire's shoulders slumped. Was this it? Just a room of junk sealed behind a trap door? In the far corner, she spotted several black trash bags. They sagged against each other like no one had dared touch them. Something about them nagged at her. She turned off the flashlight and stood still in the dark, letting the silence settle. Why hide this? The next morning, she returned. She tore into the first bag, spilling out old clothes, bed sheets, and a broken toy tractor. At the bottom, she found a photo, her father holding her as a baby, both covered in hay and laughing. Her throat tightened. Bag 2 held notebooks, canned goods, and a wall clock frozen at 6:13. Then she found a wine bottle labeled, "For a Day Worth Remembering." Her jaw clenched. The third bag fought her. She slammed it against the wall. Glass shattered, and red wine bled across the floor. A soft clink followed. A brass key had rolled free, etched with the initials CM. She froze. Not junk, a message. Driven now, she tore through the rest. She found a journal in her father's handwriting, old photos, a ceramic horse from her childhood. Then, in a bag scented with cedar, wrapped in her father's old silk handkerchief, she found a second key silver, ornate, no initials. She stepped back, staring at the 2 keys in her hand. Something behind the bags caught her eye, a cabinet pushed against the wall. She dragged it aside. Behind it was a steel safe, dust-covered, and set into the concrete. 3 keyholes. Her breath caught. First key click, second key click. 1 to go. She tore into the remaining bags. Broken lamps, moldy blankets, tangled cords. At last, in a bag beneath warped vinyl records, she found the final key. Small, brass, tied with the same red ribbon. She inserted it into the final lock. Click. The mechanism shifted with a heavy thunk. Dust trembled from the top of the safe as the door creaked open. At first, it looked empty. Then Claire saw the envelope sealed with wax, bearing her father's signet ring. Beneath it, neat stacks of bills, gold coins, old jewelry, a velvet pouch that jingled when lifted, passports, deeds, a ledger. But none of it mattered until she opened the letter. Cupcake, if you're reading this, then you didn't give up. You never did not as a kid, not when I got sick. I didn't leave you the barn because it was worthless. I left it because it was ours. I wanted you to have one last adventure with me. Everything here is yours, not because you earned it, though you did, but because you stayed. You were always my curious one, my heart. Love, Dad. Claire pressed the letter to her chest. She didn't cry. She just sat there, surrounded by dust and secrets, breathing in the quiet weight of her father's love. He hadn't forgotten her. He had seen her all along. She didn't tell her brothers, didn't wave the gold or the letter in their faces. She quietly locked the cellar and spent the rest of the day cleaning the barn until sunset, her hands dirty and her heart light. That night, at the kitchen table with a mug of cold tea, she read the letter again, slowly, softly. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't ache when she remembered him. She smiled. The next morning, when Bryan joked about barn life, Claire didn't flinch. She just smiled, peaceful, quiet. They didn't need to know. She didn't need them to. Instead, she went back to the barn, not to clean, but to rebuild. She opened the windows, swept the floors, filled jars with flowers. The place came alive not as a shrine, but a space of peace. Weeks passed. The will was settled. The arguments faded. Claire met with a real estate agent and handed him a list, local charities, a struggling farm, and a neighbor who had lost everything. She kept just enough to start something small, a flower and herb garden behind the barn. The rest she gave away, in her father's name. Sam and Bryan never knew. They didn't need to. They'd gotten what they wanted, so had she. Late one afternoon, Claire knelt by the fence, watering the first row of wildflowers. The sun hung low, casting golden light over the garden. She thought of her father, his boots echoing across the barn floor, his whistle rising above the sounds of morning chores. She smiled, not out of grief, but peace. "I found it, Dad," she whispered, brushing soil from her hands. "Thanks for everything." The wind picked up. Leaves rustled in the trees. And for a brief moment, in the hush of the evening, she thought she heard him whistle back. From that day forward, Claire didn't feel forgotten. She felt rooted.